Coach Ian Moini, welcome to the Running Effect podcast. How are you doing this afternoon?
I'm doing great, dude. I'm excited to be here.
So we're talking on July 19th, kind of in a unique period where roughly 1 month removed from the end of track season for your athletes and about probably a couple weeks away from the start of cross country season. How quiet is Chapel Hill this time of year?
It's sleepy, man. It's college town. People have left. They're at the beach. They're at home. They're doing their thing, and it's actually awesome. It's so nice. We take it in. We go to Franklin Street and we get dinner there. Like you get all the benefits of living in a college town without any of the crowds and the craziness. So this is like my favorite time of the year during Chapel Hill. Like I do love in August when people get back and it's buzzing and it's like let's go Heels. But truthfully, right now is just as good as any. Yeah.
Are any of the sports, football or any of the fall sports in Chapel Hill, like you pass in practice fields and whatnot, and they're getting after it, or are most sports off this time of year?
Yeah, I think basketball is here. They do pretty intensive like summer workouts and training. I know women's basketball is definitely here at the very least. And then football will probably start in about 2 weeks or so. Their indoor facility is right next to ours, so we always hear Mac Brown. He's on the speaker. He's like, "Push, like let's go." So we hear him like literally from our indoor track. So we will know when football practice starts.
For you, this unique time period of year, how much of it is reflecting on the track season versus preparing for the cross season? And what does this month look like for you, Milt and Jess?
Yeah, they go together, honestly. You're using your reflections from the past year to get you excited about what's to come for the following fall. So, man, I feel like we learned so much this past year that we're going to apply to cross country and be better than ever. So we're all really excited. And obviously, I think there was a lot of positives from 23, 24, but man, there's always things you can do better. There's always ways to tweak and twist and just get where you want to be. So we kind of did a big evaluation after track last week, and then truthfully, we've all kind of had some space from each other, and we'll get going again in early August.
Let's talk about, I was going to say the man of the hour. I think there are two of them, Ethan Strand and Parker Wolfe. Just in a word before diving into some things around them, what was it like seeing their success and dominance in Parker's case this past outdoor season?
Yeah, it was really cool, and it was a lot of fun. It was really the product of 3 years of hard work for both those guys, and they're just getting started. But it was awesome. Like, dude, seeing Carolina Blue at the front, like I'm an alumnus of the university, alumnus of the program. Like that is not lost on me still. Like, man, we got guys in Carolina Blue running at the highest level of this sport. That will always be the sickest thing ever to me. So it was really, really exciting. And when you know the story and you've seen the work and just how much has gone into getting to that place, you kind of get emotional. It's really cool. And those guys are going to have a great last year or two in Carolina Blue, but they certainly set the bar high, and them believing they belong at the absolute highest levels of the sport is a trickle down effect to our entire team and our entire roster too. Of like, yo, the system works. If you believe, if you buy into yourself, and man, if you're just competitive and give yourself a shot over and over again, great things are going to happen. And the sky's the limit. I mean, dude, I got third of the Olympic trials. Like it's really, really cool. And I just know all of our guys are so fired up for them because they see how hard they work, but also for themselves because they're like, man, the pathway is there. Let's go.
Take me through the difference in conversation going into, say, an NCAA meet versus in Olympic trials, where both are, as equally, debatably hard in their own way with just how stacked the NCAA is. But then obviously the Olympic trials, it's a whole new stage, a whole new venue where, for these guys, they're racing a lot of new faces that they haven't seen throughout the year. And, they probably watched it on TV 4 years ago, thinking about the possibility of even making it.
Yeah, I mean, truthfully, we try as much as possible to keep it similar. Like, yo, see what you can do, put yourself in it. Let's take a shot. Obviously, at NCAA's, there's probably just a little bit more comfort that comes with it because you're racing the same dudes, like you said. But to be really good and to accomplish the goals you want, you have to be willing to just be able to go for it no matter who's in the race. And I think the reason those two guys are really good is because, man, it doesn't matter who's on the starting line, they're going to give themselves a shot and they're going to take a big swing. And we saw that at the trials. And the cool thing for Ethan was he had some disappointment leaving the NCAA 1500 meter final. And when you don't give yourself a shot, like that hurts the most. And he implicitly put himself in it in each one of those rounds. And just seeing that transition even from 4 weeks before to the trials was really special and cool. And then Parker, man, he just does Parker things. Like he's going to put himself in it. He's going to go for it. And we really tried to push on both those guys at the trials. Like, hey man, we're new kids on the block. In 4 years, we're going to go make this team. Like we're going to see what we can do. And today, let's just have fun with it. And use this as an opportunity to learn and get better for the future. But also, man, like you're as good as anybody. Like freaking go for it.
For you, what is that last month of I mean, I know you and Milt, I'm sure, work with each other. Maybe this is more Milt, but like from a training perspective, I know you have some say. What does that last month look like, especially maybe between NCAAs and Olympic trials, where focus is fully NCAAs, maybe Olympic trials in the back of your head, and at that point, I don't want to say they're hanging on by a thread, but they've been training and racing for quite some time compared to, say, a Fisher or Kincaid, where, all the stacks are chipped on the Olympic trials and everything is perfectly placed in time. How do you, give them the best chance of making it while also facing the reality that, it's just a long season and it's hard to perform for an extended period of time?
Yeah, I think we did a good job not over racing during the regular season. But truthfully, NCAA's, man, you go, you win, or you go and you're disappointed. It's a huge emotional effort. So we did our best to just let those guys recover. We actually, we stayed in Oregon for the entire month of June, and after NCAA's, we went to Bend and we stayed there for about 10 days and got some cooler weather because, man, it's like as hot as anything in Chapel Hill. So we got some cooler weather. We got recovered. I think people would be surprised how chill we took it between the two events and let them get their legs. And, you put the finishing touches, just like the finishing touches on things, and all of a sudden you're ready to roll. And truthfully, if you time it right, like it's doable. You can be really good year round. I think we even saw that 2 or 3 years ago with Cole Hawker and Cooper Tier. Like they were running 350 for the mile in January, and then all of a sudden they're making Olympic teams too. At least Cole. So we just tried our best to time it right. We tried our best to get them recovered, and ultimately they ran their best races of the year when it really mattered at the end of the season, and that that feels good.
For you, you said something a minute ago about the goal. You said something to the extent of, you're going to make the team in 2028. Just facing the reality that you're such a young coach and the upside for you and the potential for you is kind of hard to quantify. Maybe you'll be at UNC in 4 years, but, they might not be. And I would put my chips on, if I talk to you in 4 years, you're heading a large program. Is that hard in the back of your head where that is reality, but also at the same time, you want to see them make it when you're with them at UNC?
Yeah, I mean, truthfully, when Parker won the NCAA title, even we're at dinner and it's me and Coach Mel. We just had this little moment. I was like, "Yo, for me, just experiencing this level of the sport, this is still the coolest thing ever, and it's not lost on me. And you just never know where else in your career you're gonna have guys that have that ability and that talent and just that self belief. So hopefully, right down the road, you got plenty of guys that are running at that level. But man, I know I'll always just cherish these experiences that we had. And it was really special. It's kind of a backwards way of answering it, but it was just really special and really cool. And you just want the best for them no matter what.
Let's go way back in time, kind of filling out what it took to get to this position. You were obviously an accomplished runner yourself, and I think that's something we see from time to time with coaches, but I think you were probably at a higher level than most. Can you take me through your first experience in the sport of running and what your first impressions of it were?
Yeah, I ran middle school cross country in 7th grade. That's all we had. Like in my school was just middle school cross country. Ran it, had some success. I grew up playing ice hockey actually, and loved that. And really, that was my first love. But got into running. You start to have some success. You start to learn more about it, and ultimately got really into it. And had the opportunity actually to come to Carolina and run at UNC, and that those things kind of went hand in hand together. So my start in the sport, I think, was perfect because it was very relaxed. It was just like, okay, like let's see what we can do. Let's have fun. It was very unstructured. Even my freshman and sophomore year of high school, I didn't even run track. I just ran cross country. So that was great because you just slowly work your way into the sport. You get more excited about it as you get older, and I think that's why I'm still so excited about it right now because it's like, man, I'm still growing into it, and that's a lot of fun.
I think I certainly experienced this in high school, and I definitely think like talent plays a role. I think a guy that I would use as a talented figure would be Patrick Hilby. I think he ran 147 outdoors going to
Stud.
Wisconsin, and he I think only went all in on track and cross his senior year of high school, and I think that's probably an extreme example. But for your example, you didn't do track those first 2 years as you mentioned, and I think I was in the boat, and most kids are in the boat that they see they follow Jakob Ingebrigtsen on social media, and they see his success at a young age, and they think maybe they see it in sixth grade and they're like, I got to go all in right now. I'm dropping soccer. I'm dropping everything. And I almost think a lot of times, at least my personal belief, that it's unhealthy to do. And if I could go back, I actually think I would have done another sport in high school and not just cross country and track all 4 years. What's your take on that? And what would you say to an individual about maybe considering a different path that freshman year, at least easing into it rather than putting all your chips in one basket? And granted, so many successful people do that, but I think from a sustainability aspect, it can be difficult for a lot of individuals.
Yeah, I mean, I think it just depends on the person, but you got to have somewhere to go. You know what I mean? Like, you got to have somewhere to go. If the peak of your running career is going to be senior year of high school, then man, it's going to be hard to be excited as you get to college and as you get older. So I just think growing into it, getting more excited year in and year out. I think the way that our system even here is here at UNC, like people leave Carolina excited to keep running because the way we train is just a little more sustainable maybe than other places, and that allows you to feel like, man, I can keep getting better. I'm still excited to experience and try new things, and ultimately, like, you got to be excited about it. And if you accomplish everything at once, if you do everything at once, if you go deep too early, it can ultimately kind of burn you out and get you exhausted.
I mentioned that kind of Jakob Ingebrigtsen example that I think a lot of younger people experience. I think on the contrary, in college, just with Strava and social media, it's very easy to see what other college programs are doing or just professional runners in general. How have you kind of tried to steer the guys in the right direction? And, I'm sure it's easier when you see what Parker's doing and winning an NCAA championship off of the work, and it's like, trust what we're doing. But what's that balance been like in terms of let's do our thing and let other people do their triple threshold? That's okay.
Yeah, I mean, dude, ultimately Strava is just social media, and social media is a great way for you to feel really crappy about yourself. So we just try to get our guys aligned of like, yo, only thing that matters is what's happening here. Let's be bought into each other. Let's be bought into our system. And ultimately, as coaches, we'll buy into you. And building those great relationships enables every member of our team to feel like someone is really invested in their success. And if you have a really good relationship with somebody, then I think you can sway them and get them excited to potentially do things differently than they have before. Because even some of our guys, they come in high school, they've used Strava, they're obsessed with it, they're so excited about it, and it's like, yo, that's what you did in high school, and that got you to a certain level. But to be great, you have to be different, and we just really try to nail that in from day one. And even in the recruiting process, like just the way we talk is different, I think, and getting people who want that and want to be coached and are excited to be around guys like Parker and Ethan who preach that too. So
UNC, obviously one of the top programs in the country, which means the kids you're going to recruit are only the best of the best. And if you're recruiting the best of the best, the other best schools in the country are also recruiting them. In your recruiting process, if you deem a kid is the right fit, what are some things you try to implement in your recruiting process to stand out from other schools? And from your personal experience, what do you think makes the Tar Heels stand out?
Oh man, it's very simple. It's our guys. People come on visits and like, man, just the way your guys talk is different. The way they're invested in each other is different. Like we got guys who are really, really into this, but and they're really, really into it, and they're really competitive. And that's something that we're looking for in recruits, right? Like who's super competitive, who loves to race, who is dialed and trying to find out how good they can be every day. But they also want to be on a great team. And if you put those two things together, man, like you're going to be dangerous because you're seeing other people's success as an accelerator, right? So it's like, man, Parker's at this level, even at that level. I see that as a way to get me better. And for us, that's the number one thing that we're looking for. And just on visits and when recruits are interacting with our team, that's what they see, at least I hope. And when you've got guys who are as good as anybody in the country and in the world talking about their teammates' success and what they want people around them to do, that is contagious. And I think that's really attractive to a lot of people. And, for some people, they get a little scared of that, and that's not the right fit. So it's all about finding guys who, man, like, yeah, they're competitive. Yeah, they got big goals, but also they see other people as a way to help them, get there. And ultimately, like, what we can do as a group too.
When you do recruit, I know the kids you recruit, the caliber they're at, how is it ever difficult, that the process of, either they don't want to go there, or even maybe more difficult, like you're just not the right fit after a visit? It's like you've run, 401 in the mile, 4 flat in the mile. You're really, really fast, but, I don't think you would excel in this culture. Is that ever difficult to part ways?
Yeah, we've had that happen before, for sure. And it's a hard conversation, but ultimately, like, no one should end up somewhere they're not meant to be, because everyone is going to be upset. So it's all about each individual finding the right fit, and everyone is going to be happier if we find a way to make that the goal of the recruiting process. I always say, like, when we're talking to someone, even at the end, is like, hey, don't forget, one, the goal of this process is to make a decision. A lot of people forget that. And then two, the goal for this is for you to find the right place. And for us, if you come here and you're not supposed to be here, we're just going to all end on bad terms. We're going to be unhappy. And man, like, I just want everyone to be successful and be happy, even if they do go to Notre Dame, come on. So
I remember in my conversation with Milt last year, after we were chatting it up, and he said, if you're interested, you should really get Ethan and Parker on, and just talked about their work ethic and how they're going places. And this is the first time I reflected on that conversation today. And since it happened, it's funny, it's so full circle. He basically said, you're going to hear their name a lot very, very soon. And he kind of called his shot. And it's funny looking back on that conversation now. He could totally see all the work that was, culminating in what we would see this past season. For you, what's that been like over the past few years? I mean, you've been in the thick with them, kind of seeing their success before the world did, knowing, you keep laying these bricks, eventually big things are going to happen. And the outside world only sees, that NCAA title or that third place finish. But, you probably, just like Milt did, saw it a year ago. It was only a matter of time.
yeah, a year ago, 2 years ago, I think it was just the way they went about their business. They've grown up a lot and they've learned a lot, but from day one, they've just had very clear intention on what they want to be, and also who they want to be on a college campus. I think that's really important. And this is something that I struggled with truthfully as a college athlete. Is like, you get there and there's just a lot coming at you at once, and you're not totally sure like what's up from down. To those guys' credit, from the very first day they arrived, they wanted to be elite athletes. They wanted to get a great education, but they also wanted to be elite athletes, and they owned their college experience being about that. And then back to recruiting, that's something else that we do look for is, man, like, they wanted their college experience to be defined by being on a great team, by finding out how good they could be. And for them, like, that was really fun, and that was what was exciting them. And man, like, if you've got that from the time that you're 18 years old, like, dude, you're going to be dangerous. You know what I mean? Because that means that you're dialed from the start, and that really goes a long way. And when you've got older guys then in your program who approach their running the way that those two do, it's, again, a trickle down effect. It's like, okay, this is what we do. This is what we're about. We talked about this in the recruiting process, but then you see it and what it really looks like, and you get excited about that because your best friends are doing it too. That's when, again, it's contagious. And I always say, like, a standard is like a bar, right? So like, if only two people are holding the bar and you look left and you look right, you're like, I don't know if I'm supposed to be doing this. I don't know if this is correct. But if everybody's holding it up, it's like, oh yeah, this is exactly where I'm supposed to be. This is where I want to be. And like, let's freaking go.
You mentioned that, you ultimately ended up running for the University of North Carolina. Actually, before we do that, who did I just talk to? I just spoke with Logan St. John Cletter, who's going to be at UNC this fall. And at the end of the conversation, I was like, I've never asked Milt this. I've never asked Alex this. Why is it UNC Chapel Hill? She explained, I don't understand the explanation. You guys are the only North Carolina that the United States knows about.
Yeah, I don't. That's a good question. I'm actually not totally sure. I always thought it was just like Chapel Hill is a cool thing to say. I don't know, but I do. Okay, I don't know the answer to that, but I do know why we're called the Tar Heels. So that's a good in between. We're called the Tar Heels because I guess back in the day, the state's main industry was creating like supplies for the Navy and the Army, and a lot of that came from trees. So the workers, they were mostly blue collar, and they were poor guys. They wouldn't have shoes, so they would get tar on their heels from like working with the sap. And truthfully, like, people made fun of them and called them poor, and they like called them Tar Heels. And then the Civil War happened, and the soldiers from North Carolina, they took pride in being from North Carolina and called themselves Tar Heels. And that's how they came to Tar Heels. So that's a good mix on the answers. I don't know UNC Chapel Hill, but I do know the Tar Heels. Yeah.
That's a good speech before a big workout. Let's embody that blue collar work ethic that this state did
absolutely.
hundreds of years ago. I just, especially in results, I rarely see UNC Chapel Hill, only North Carolina.
Yeah.
And I feel like it gets talked all the time about UNC Chapel Hill, and I'm like, I don't quite understand that. But because what I said to her was like, they're Ohio State branches, but it would sound so weird to everyone if you said the Ohio State University Columbus, or like at Columbus or whatever. Yeah. So
it's gotta be different. Own it.
Yeah, you do have to be different. There you go. Embrace it. Back to my question. So you obviously ran for UNC, got recruited to run there, and now obviously as a coach there, you're recruiting kids to come there. Way different time periods. UNC in a much better spot success wise in present day. Biggest differences in recruiting from your time being recruited to now as someone who recruits?
Oh man, I just think we're able to get a little bit of a little different of a type of kid now. With the primary emphasis of our program being on middle distance and distance running. That was not the case when I first came here. We are able to show like, hey, this is our priority. This is what we want to be really good at. We want to have a great cross country team. And truthfully, I just don't think our culture, or whatever word you want to use, was in a place where we could really get it fully turned around without like a full reset. So when Coach Milt came in, that was actually my junior year of college, and there were a lot of guys who were on the team that totally changed their college experience because he showed up. And there were some guys that weren't as interested in doing that, but there were guys there that completely changed who they were on a college campus because they had somebody that believed in them, and they had somebody that got them excited about being a lead athlete. My best friend in the whole world, Brandon Tubby, man, he doing dumb stuff his first 2 years of college, but he ACC champion in the mile, 3:38 in the 1500, as ferocious of a competitor as anybody I've ever seen. That's just because he had somebody that invested in him and was excited about him. And that just goes such a long way. And that's where I think coaching is so special, and why ultimately, I wanted to do it, and why I love it. And it matters. Like, it really matters.
Something I'm curious to hear about. So the shift happens when Milt comes junior year of college. He brings with him two guys, Alex Osberg, Thomas Ratcliffe. Both have been on the podcast. Alex more times than one could possibly count. What was that like, right? People talk about the Milt transition, but as someone who was on the team, what was it like having, two Stanford hotshots, done it all in the NCAA, come to the program? What was that first workout like?
Yeah, well, actually, the first person who showed up was Stephen Fahey, and he was
Right.
He was just kind of training as a post-collegiate. I remember the first day he showed up, how he went about his movement prep exercises. I was like, yo, this dude takes this differently. Wow, like the bar has been raised right away. Just the intentionality, the attention to detail, the ability to focus and be really dialed, but still have a good time for sure, and be jovial. But like, just like, man, this guy takes this really seriously. He's really into it. And truthfully, we just never seen someone act like that before, and it was awesome to learn from him. I remember just being a sponge, like following him around all the time. During the pandemic, I literally ran with Steven every single day, like during the pandemic, just trying to learn as much as I possibly could. And then Alex and Thomas and Connor and Alan and all of them showed up, and people always ask me, like, man, obviously coaching, but what really contributed to UNC taking the next big step? I'll say it's the people in the program, right? Because you had guys like Brandon Tubby, who was a homegrown dude who bought in, who got excited and invested in the younger guys like Jesse Hunt, Marshall Williamson, John Tatter. Then those three guys invested in our current young guys, Patrick Anderson, Will Coogan, Ethan, all those dudes. But then you had these really, really impactful grad transfers who from day one were so excited about building this thing up. Dude, Thomas and Alex the year before, they're trying to win NCAA titles as a team. Like Stanford, can we win the NCAA cross country title? They come to Carolina, dude, we're trying to make the NCAA cross country meet for the first time in 8 years. And they were as excited about that as they were trying to win NCAA championships. And man, that just had a trickle down effect. You got Jack Aho, who's teaching Parker, who's investing in our team after being on a top 10 team at Michigan. The intersection of both of those groups of people really propelled us forward. And man, the fact that those guys came here were as excited about us being really good as they were at their old stops, I don't think we can ever repay them for that. And they have made an incredible impact, along with the guys who were already here, who really bought in and got excited.
I think something like not making an NCAA meet in 8 years and having the pieces to do it for the first time and the vision and leadership to do it is incredibly motivating to do. Bringing it to present day, it's no doubt you guys are going to make the NCAA meet. Now we're in a discussion of podiuming and seeing how high you can go on that podium. How do you replicate that energy from those early years of like, hey, we've got a big chip on our shoulder, we've got something to prove? Not that you don't present day, because I think until you're at the top, there's always some form of motivation to grab. But I think early on, like as you were speaking to, there's a lot of like contagious energy that goes on. What are some ways you try to replicate that in present day?
Yeah, I mean, we always talk about like we have not made it yet. We are still climbing. We are still ascending. And that's just got to be deeply rooted in the way you go about your business every day. Even after we have a lot of success, it's like, hey, come back to center. We're still got things to accomplish. We still got things to build and grow. Outdoors at the ACC meet, we actually, for the first time, I think in 2 or 3 ACC meets, did not score the most points from 800 meters and up. Virginia did. Dude, this is who I am every day. You've had Coach Milt on the podcast. That's who he is every day. Like, we are jacked up. Like, we are into this, and we are in it with these guys too. So just being humble, having humility, knowing that you don't have it all figured out. Like we talked about at the beginning, being willing to be open-minded about doing new things as well, and just changing it up and keeping it fresh. And then just investing in our younger guys and getting them excited to like, hey, just because our program has done this and you are certainly part of it does not mean that you have done it. So like we got a lot of work to do, and that's exciting and that's fun and that's an opportunity.
As someone who is an athlete in the NCAA at a high level, what are some lessons you think you learned from being an athlete at a high level and striving for a lot of the goals of the similar goals that the guys you coach now have helped and has helped you now as a coach?
Yeah, I think it's just knowing what it's like day to day. I think teaching people how to deal with disappointment too is somewhere of a strong suit of mine, because I had some disappointment in my running career, and just being able to articulate like, hey, we have to be able to evaluate things unemotionally, and we have to be able to not make unfair comparisons. And if we can do that, then we're going to be able to create some momentum. And that's like a lesson that I really try to preach to our young guys. And then just logistically, I don't know if that's the right word, being an educator of what being an elite athlete looks like on a college campus. So, dude, we literally sit our freshmen down and like, hey, this is UNC. There's a lot going on here. You're saying you want to live your life like Parker Wolfe. Okay, this is what that actually looks like on Tuesday night at 7 p.m. This is what this looks like at 11 a.m. on a Wednesday after practice, and really like educating them on day in and day out the logistics of being great. And I always say, like, as a college coach, you are an educator. I was an education major in college, and that's something that I take a lot of pride in, and Coach Milt does too, and that's a trickle-down effect from him. And I think if you look at the best college coaches in America across any sport, Danny Hurley, Jersey guy, UConn basketball, they are educators first. And you can't overestimate people's ability to do basic things. So we really try to teach those guys stuff like that.
How important do you think the details are? You mentioned, sitting a freshman down and showing them what a Wednesday night at 7 p.m. looks like for Parker. How important do you think those minute details are? And I'm going to tie it to a quote that I came across maybe a few months ago, but I came across it again yesterday, and I think it's fantastic. The quote is by Harold Craxton. He said, "Amateurs practice until they can get it right. Professionals practice until they can't get it wrong." I think that's perfect.
Yeah, I think it's super important, especially when you are kind of at a time in your life where you could easily get pulled at the threads and kind of fall apart. People talk about the lifestyle all the time, and it's really, really important. And it's this full circle thing, which is really cool. When you come as an 18-year-old, you have to be almost a little bit anxious. I don't know if it's the right word, but you have to really care about making sure you check all the boxes to get like recovered and do the things you need to be able to train at a high level. Then you actually get to a level where you have to be open-minded enough to know that if things don't go perfectly, you can still be really successful. So I think seeing that arc over the course of a career is really cool. And, now we're getting to the point where we do have some older guys who have gotten their routines so dialed that now it's coming to the other side of like, things don't have to be perfect for me to be successful. And I have built up a block of work and a foundation that I can still perform no matter the circumstance, which is really cool.
You're one of the youngest coaches in the NCAA. You go from being an athlete to hopping into the coaching scene very quickly. Transition is quick. I could only guess that there was a level of imposter syndrome. To what extent you can share? How did you combat those feelings? I think it's something a lot of people struggle with in the avenue of arenas. What are some of your advice and tips on overcoming it, and how do you personally do it?
Yeah, I mean, it gets better every day, I'd say. But when I first came back to UNC, I was a fifth year. I had just graduated in August. I had gone the past semester to go volunteer coach at Eastern Michigan. I really would say intern. I was 21 years old, and then come back and be hired somehow at 22. And I'll give a lot of credit to the guys that were already on the team. They respected me enough to let me run with this because they knew I was passionate about it. And we kind of met in the middle of like, hey, like I'm not necessarily going to be your coach on day one, but this role is going to evolve and this role is going to grow. And to have people that cared enough about me to respect me enough to allow me to grow into this role has been awesome. And man, like now starting year 4, I'm feeling better and more confident than I ever have. And I'm sure when I start year 6, I'll be like, man, I didn't know anything when I was 24. So I think it's just a constant work in progress, and you have to be open-minded to learning. And then Coach Milt, Andrea Grove McDonough, you've had on the podcast, just amazing like mentors that be like, yo, just be open minded, like see what you can do, learn. And it's very much like being an athlete, like just putting yourself out there. For me, sometimes I struggle with, walking up to someone and introducing yourself. Like that can be scary, but the more you do it, the less foreign it becomes. And that's the case for anything in life.
Milt, perhaps, in my opinion, greatest coach in the NCAA, one of the greatest coaches in NCAA history. I think he is cementing himself in that debate as his legacy lives on. What's it like being an apprentice under him, and what are, one of these days I'll have to get all, I mean, I've had so many of his athletes and coaches at this point on the podcast. I'll have to do a podcast dedicated to the lessons learned from Milt. But for you personally, what are the biggest lessons you've learned from working under him?
Oh, I mean, endless. And I'll never be able to thank him enough for investing in me as a coach and just as a person. But, his ability to connect with people is unrivaled, in my opinion. His ability to connect, his ability to meet people where they're at, pairing with being an incredible technical coach. I don't think he gets enough credit for that. He's able to intersect those two things amazingly well. And he is extremely dialed on how things build on each other. So, how having a struggle in your personal life relates to the workout and how that's going to relate to fatigue, and just being able to pair all those things together and be able to really speak to athletes and help them understand the intersection of all things. So I think he does an amazing job of that. I think he's the best, educator of elite athletes. Like, hey, we're going to be in here for 4 to 5 years and we're going to set you up to be a world-class professional. And like, we're really going to teach you what that looks like. He's an amazing teacher, and to be a great coach, again, like you have to be an amazing teacher. And then the last piece is he's just got infectious energy. And I believe I do too. And if you're excited enough and energetic enough every day, people around you are going to get excited and energetic. And if you believe in them and you just keep that going, that is contagious as anything. And he's still at year 36 in college coaching. He's not that old. He still has that every single day. And that's just so special. So yeah, amazing guy, amazing coach, better person.
I think something that makes him stand out, at least from my experiences with him, as well as with Alex, and I really think a lot of where Alex gets this is from Coach Milt, is his education 24/7 year round. That's not just about running and truly about other subjects, philosophy, psychology, you name it. I feel like he's constantly consuming information to make him a better person, better coach. I've certainly experienced that with Alex in my own right, and I think some of that's rubbed off on me as well. We send each other probably one podcast per day. It's kind of off the charts. What's it like kind of being a part of that, and how, I wouldn't say fundamental for lack of a better word, do you think that's been to just good coaching, is just learning all the time?
Yeah, it's always being open-minded. It's always looking for ways to be even better. And it's never thinking that you know it all, never thinking you have it all figured out. We talk about that all the time. Like that's the number one way to get stale and to not be very good. And he is so good at that it forces me almost to be on top of my stuff. Like, okay, like I'm always learning, always being open-minded. I personally, like for me, I love other coaches and other sports. He loves like musicians, he loves it all. So it's been really cool to almost like learn how to learn in this profession, I would say. And it goes a long way. And it's never ending, which is how you're really good.
Is there a specific podcast, book, whatever it might be, that Coach Milt shared with you that you were skeptical at first just because it really had nothing to do with running, or so you thought, and you read it or listened to it and were pleasantly surprised, gained some wisdom from it?
Oh, that's a good question. Um, he is always sending podcasts, for me at least, of coaches in other sports, because he knows how much I love coaching. And when I was on the team, he sent me a podcast with the squash coach from Trinity College. And man, I have never known anything about squash in my entire life. And I learned more about running in that hour than maybe I had in the last 2 years. So it's just little things like that. And being able to relate just like kind of competitive intensity and competitive drive in other areas to running and coaching. And, even for us, we are open-minded, we're learning all the time, but we're still competitors. And for me, like being able to hone that and learn how to do that effectively while being a great coach and kind of doing that in motion has been really cool to learn from him.
Obviously, you yourself, super young. You're what, 25 years old? 24?
Yep.
25?
25, just turned 25.
Happy birthday. July
Thanks.
or June?
Late May.
Oh, best birthday month. I'm a May
Yep.
birthday as well.
Perfect.
Best time of year. Anyways, very young guy, lots of potential. What do you want your legacy to be in the sport of running, and what are some things you're looking to accomplish in this sport as a coach?
I would love to be someone who just was always connecting and was always building meaningful relationship, whose athletes knew that he was in it with them every single day, no matter what. And I think this is a benefit of being a young coach, and I like to keep with me as I get older, is also be someone who can practice and exercise grace. I don't know if that's the right word, but just, man, like people are figuring it out. Like this is always a work in progress. And if you can operate from a place of, okay, let's take a deep breath, man, like maybe you didn't just make the best decision or you made a mistake, but still sticking with people when they go through down times and go through tough times. I would love for that. And then on a more fun note, like I would love to be someone who's remembered that empowered people to make really hard decisions, empowered people to try really hard. Like sometimes that's not cool. Like for me, it's cool to try hard. Like I'm into that. So I want to empower people to try really hard, to believe in themselves, to go for it. And the accolades and the championships and the results will be a byproduct of all of those things. It's, man, how do you get people to buy into themselves? And that's something that I'm, going to be working at hopefully for the next 50 years. So.
Young audience, a lot of people who want to be great at the sport of running. It's a question I think I've asked every coach on the podcast, and I'm always fascinated by the answer. Very simple question, can take it a plethora of different ways. What does it take to be great at the sport of running?
The thing I'm on right now is you got to have the intersection of humility and self-belief. You got to have humility that you're willing to learn and grow and get better and always be, as we talked about, looking for new ways to kind of evolve yourself, paired with not just doing that externally, but doing it internally too. Like, man, what can I actually do to get better? Not like I need a heart rate monitor. Like, what can I actually do to get better? How can I improve myself? But then you pair that with self-belief of like, if I do those things, and the magic word, consistency, if I do those things consistently, then I'm going to give myself a shot and I'm going to put myself out there. And at UNC, self-belief and confidence means being there at halfway of a race, being there with a quarter left in a race. And if you do that, again, consistently, great things are going to happen. So for me, right now, being great is humility, self-belief, put together and doing it for a long period of time and having fun with it too.
Ian, final question. I ask every single guest on every single podcast, if you had Gordon Ramsay coming over to your house for dinner, what would you choose to make for him?
Yeah, my specialty right now is salmon and rice and some broccoli. I even cooked it for the crew up in Bend when we were staying there, and hopefully they loved it. So I make him some salmon, and hopefully have a good conversation with him about being high level. So.
There you go. Ian, really appreciate the conversation. Really excited to go back and listen to this one. I know a good podcast when I have those thoughts of like, man, there's a difference between like interview mode and conversation mode and keeping up a conversation versus like taking notes and learning from it. And I know it's a great podcast when at the end I'm like, oh, I'm stoked to listen back and, this time have a notebook and write down lessons from it. So wise beyond your years and really excited to see all the things you'll accomplish in the years to come. Keep crushing it, man.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it. This is a lot of fun.